Welcome back. Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these two photographic prints somewhere? Yes. I mean, you can still even see it in the background there. It's like, it's the box in the bottom right. There is a discrepancy, so let's point it out. Don't even need to go cross-eyed for this one. You can. Makes it easier to spot. You can see it jumping out at you. Wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court, counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy of which you speak. What does it matter which one I do on? I'll go with that. Because that's the one that makes sense to me. That's where it's moved. Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them. What? When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different. The location of this small box. Let me wait. Unbelievable. Is that right? I can't see it. Oh god. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilded's small box was indeed not stolen from Windybanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilded is in fact... Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf. Nothing was stolen. Which means, quite simply, that nothing has changed. That may be true, but... Alright, McGilded's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved, like that, change things? It changes everything! I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, you have to consider what might have been inside that box. Yes, thank you. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windybanks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Oh. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. Clearly is. And the court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zykes. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination. Oh, but it's going to take a while. It's a stare off. We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zykes. This is nothing but a smokescreen, and a police speciality it would seem. What are you trying to say, mate? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning, that this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place. Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property. I'd like to know where he gets his goblets, because they're so fine, but he has to replace them. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society's reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a small box. I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. You know, that does make a rather lot of sense. It's not as if it was gold or jewels, is it? Though goodness knows, Mr. McGill was rich enough. You can't deposit a cash at a pawnbroker, I'm quite certain of that. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by the fine citizen could have. Well, counsel? Is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that this disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case? Well, what's the matter, Runa? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Yes, of course. You and I both know that. We know McGild's true character, and we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGild's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. That the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information. Oh no. And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. But Ginny? Could it be that Van Zykes knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he anticipated everything? Maybe. This could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry? What do you mean, Iris? Well, so that you always say, Runa. Sooner or later, the truth comes out. Every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGill deposited with Mr. Windybank. It's something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here? We're gonna have to have her testify. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal. Oh, what proposal, counsel? While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGild's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand. The defendant? To what end? It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windybanks by Mr. McGill, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all. Well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing? In particular, the impact it will have on the accused's standing, and indeed your own. I have. Lord Van Zykes, would you care to explain the last remark? The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself. Very well. If you have no objection. So the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. and I shall bid you good day. Wait. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Mr. Strahd testifies. As you wish. All right then, Gina. It's time. I know this will be hard, but please, put your faith in me here. Good luck, Runo. The articles that Mr. McGillit had deposited in Windybank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the Omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in the courtroom 2 months ago. Yes, I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGillit. The Omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now here we are all again, the same players in that trial facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps. The choice of Steins Gate, my Nipponese friend. Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGillit. Naturally, he was the prime suspect for the murder. Now, as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged, that the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight into the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGillit died in this very courtroom, in the most extraordinary of circumstances. A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on, as indeed does the omnibus murder itself. Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor the small box being mentioned in the course of those proceedings. Miss Lestrade. Would you tell the court now, please? What really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean? I don't know what you mean. I already said all of what I know. And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade. This is extremely important. But remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose. Harsh. Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Bruno now. Iris? We're on your side. Alright then. I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina. Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears. So be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGilt's pawned articles and that extraordinary case of the omnibus harbour secrets of which we have been hitherto unaware. So, Miss Lestrade, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, commodity sorely lacking in your original statements. This is it, then. Everything's going to come out. Like Van Sykes said. This could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears. As a lawyer, prepared to take that risk. Witness testimony. The real truth of the Omnibus case. Truth is, that brickmaker cove was in the cabin in the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw the disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from over me head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. That's when McGilded slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop roundabout. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Okay. Good grief, this is outrageous. I want to press on the disc. You just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. Then there's every chance you may have adjudicated an error in McGilded's trial. Sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived this court in an effort to cover up the most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. Great injustice was done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused in the trial of this witness and of my learned friend are extremely inexcusable. I don't believe it. The whole trial was a farce. It's all lies. I was there. That McGilded fellow was run to the court, just like that pickpocket. Don't forget the lawyer from the east. We were in it together. Wrong, a lot of you. Mr. Narrow-Odo, the lawyer there, didn't know nothing about it. Humbug. I don't think so. Are we really expected to believe that? He really stitched everyone up, didn't he? What an operation to get a man off scot-free. Unforgivable. Stop. The liars have to stop. Stop. Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. I intend to take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allows the witness to elaborate on her testimony, because the true significance of McGilded's pawned articles must be brought to light. Very well, my learned student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may well be worth hearing. Words fail me. This situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. Blimey, Mr. Naruhodo. Now, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination. Okay. The real truth of the Omnibus case. On the disc. Truth is that brickmaker cove was in on the cabin in the omnibus the whole time. The Irishman dragged me out from under the seat. I saw that disc on the floor. That's what I want. Hold it! Was the disc you saw this disc? Yeah. I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor. Would this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but McGilded picked it up pretty smartish. And then he sat the cove with the knife in it. And then he sat the cove with the knife in his belly up on the seat, yeah. It's too many E's and U's. What did he say to you at the time? He told me not to say a word about what I'd seen or heard to no one. About the disc and all. I was dead scared. When he was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. And he started asking me a load of questions. Like what my name was and where I lived and that. Asked me about being a diver too. But after a while, what happened in the carriage was noticed. Yeah, that's right. First there was a kind of rapping noise. Oh. All of a sudden I heard a scream from over my head, and the pair at the roof deck went off to call the slops. Let's go to the end. And go around to Iris, see if she says anything. Well done, Gina. Can't have been easy to tell the truth like that. Gina's really put her faith in you, Runo. Yes, and to thank her, she'll have to face a charge of perjury once this trial's over. We need to use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible. It's time to really go for it. Press her on every statement. I suppose I should. Oh, and another thing. What's that? Oh, hello. Take a look at those two. Isn't it strange that they've been whispering to each other the entire time? Yes, that is strange. It's like they're having a secret discussion about something. I'm not sure I'm completely comfortable with that. If there's anything we can do about it. Do we just have to press and go over to them then? Let's give it a go, give it a go. And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Mr. Strahd? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Right, hold on, right. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. What's going on here, mate?
Excuse me!
Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon? Inspector, Mr. Graydon. Blimey, you trying to give me an heart attack? You have been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about? Discussion? With this fella? Or the other one, Sunshine? You think I've got anything to talk about with a shady gent like this? And I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after you deprived me of that disc that was rightfully mine. They've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. It's as if they've been negotiating. You will kindly refrain from talking amongst yourselves while the witness is giving testimony? Yes, sorry, my lord. What were those two talking about? Miss Lestrade, continue with your testimony, please. Let's go back to the first one. Let's go through then. Truth is, the Brickmaker Cove was in the cabin in the omnibus the whole time.
Hold it!
And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, yeah, we'll get to the bit we were at. That's right, it's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain you claim Mr. McGilded was the sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord. That's what he told me I had to say. But it's important that you tell us the truth now. Were Mr. McGilded and the victim acquaintances? I don't know. But I hear him talking a lot. What were they talking about? Well, I couldn't hear him too well. I had to say. I think it was about money or something. Kept talking about buying and not buying. Perhaps business dealings of some kind. Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. It started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. Hardly dared to breathe, and then all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It's blooming loud and all. I believe you let out an involuntary scream? Yeah, that's what gave me away. Alright. Alright, so we'll go through this again. But I'm just seeing if I get something sparked from those two over there. Because they might do with the disc now. But I've already been through it, so it's fine. Got nothing coming from you two, okay. Alright, I expected something from those two off to the right, but all of a sudden I heard a scream from over my head and a pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops.
Hold it!
And there were 2 gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe. That's right. He must have looked down through the skylight and noticed the cove with the knife in his guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up the horses, and McGilded got me out of sight. Out of sight? Where? Back under the seat where I started off. As the carriage came to an halt, the 2 coves from the roof ran off to fetch the slops. If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident. So it left McGilded, the driver, and you still at the scene. Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open and a voice from outside. The driver, yes. He also testified in the trial, I believe. fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves. Beppo. What did McGilded and the driver say to each other? I don't know what happened, and stuff like that mainly. Okay, that's when McGilded slipped the driver something to do a run to the pawn shop roundabout.
Hold it!
That pawn shop obviously being Windybanks on Baker Street. Just a moment, Counsel. Do you mean to tell me that the driver gave false testimony in the trial as well? Perhaps the excursion to the pawnbrokery slipped his mind when he was in the stand. Indeed, Lord Van Zykes. McGilded took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up and more careful like before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat and what's in it is probably worth a few bob. Yes, Gina was sure that this must be worth more than Misty Windybank was suggesting, wasn't she? I mean, that's what we're after here, so... I remember her quibbling with him over the prize that afternoon at the pawnbrokery. The driver looked pretty happy when McGilded flashed some brass in his face. He went running off at her leg. Then the bog trotter called to me and told me to come out from the drag's cabin. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. I should have pressed on that. Well done, Junior Company. Yeah. Okay, so we went after the fifth one again. I just got caught in the motions. You know, he threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard.
Hold it!
Threaten you how exactly? Told me I'd only be able to scarp her if I did exactly what he said. Which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago. Yeah, that's it. And there was one thing he said. Which was... He told me I'd have to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it. The ticket? Well, I never. Said that if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep it in luck. And to stop it being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it. But really? Why on earth would Mr. McGilded have done such a thing? Busting his overcoat with a pawnbroker before the arrival of the police. Makes no sense at all. There would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. What McGilded had the driver deposit at Windybanks was something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs. Anyway, after that he let me go, so I legged it before the coppers showed up. Oh. Thank you, Miss Lestrade. Thank you, Counsel. I've heard enough. I believe we now have a reasonable understanding of what actually transpired on the Omnibus. It would appear on the night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the Omnibus. A negotiation concerning this disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. That's one way of putting it, isn't it? When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilded took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life. Which proves my point. The disc is clearly extremely valuable in some way. I don't understand why as yet. Government secrets! And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the Omnibus incident, McGilded's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited. I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the coat died right after his trial. I knew that. So you decided you would try to claim the articles as your own. Well, why not, eh? They're only going to be forfeited. Why shouldn't I have got them? Anyway, can't blame you for thinking about it. Thinking ain't no crime. Miss Lestrade, it would appear Mr. McGilded was prepared to kill in order to take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be? Eh? I ain't got a clue. I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. He's probably gonna sell it. You can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking ain't no crime. My lord. The evidence your lordship requested has been located and is ready for the court's inspection, sir. Oh, my. A mysterious little box deposited by McGilded 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle. To be continued? Well, I do think that's probably a good place to actually end this part, to be honest. Because clearly we're getting down to the point of... It's government secrets on that disc. It's a data disc, not a music disc. But what's the best... I'm trying to think like back to the times like the Victorian era. Like, what's the best way to transmit information in terms of like musical notes? It's like it could be music that's actually got something encoded in it. But the only way I could think of that back then is actually something relating to one of the jury. Because if he's a communications expert and she's a communications expert, was it number 5? Juror number 5? She's using Morse code, isn't she? That's what it'll be. It'll be a Morse code situation. Just depends what this box is. I'm expecting the box to either have another disc in, or dust, or something to show there was a disc there, or it's actually a player. But we shall see. I assume we'll see anyway. That would be my first instinct, is to open it up. So we'll see you in the next part. Ta-ta for now.